So I made this app that lets you take audio from one or more microphones and transcribe that audio into text. You can use it for some of your other applications. Maybe you want to make subtitles. Maybe you want to make like an AI that listens to you. Let me just show you how it works, and then we'll get into like some of the details about the process of making it. So let me quickly just show you what the app does. So basically, you can have a microphone, you have a name for who you will be on the log, and you can say that the mic is enabled. You can have multiple mics on here. And if I press start recording, from now, it's basically going to start recording everything that I say. Currently, it's in 5-second chunks, but this is a setting you can change later. And once I press stop recording, it's going to wait for all those chunks to finish, and then it's going to transcribe everything that was just said into text. So if we go to log preview, it's going to, you see that if I press start recording, what I just said is basically coming through. And it's in this log here. Sometimes it takes a little bit for the servers to get back, but it will, if your recording time's long enough, it should get these all back. You can clear this log, and then if, refreshing it just loads it from the text file. You shouldn't need to do this. This happens automatically. So with this, additionally, there's a bunch of settings. So you could basically say, how long do you want those chunks to be? The longer you do, the longer it can take for the response to come back. But if it's too short, it can't record fast enough and it will miss some of the things you say. 5 to 30 seconds seems good. Then log location is where the text file is being stored. Basically, that's just the text file that you can read in your other application, or you can just, get it when you're done doing all your recordings. Additionally, you can select a model. Currently, I just use OpenAI, and it costs money. It's like 6 cents every 10 minutes per microphone. But you could, I also have the ability to use Whisper locally, which is just what OpenAI is using. So if you can run Whisper, and this is kind of where you can get it, I'll also have that in the description. And you put in these, it will run on your local computer. If you do that, though, just make sure you kind of bump your recording time a little bit, because it is a lot slower than just going directly to the internet. So the main reason I made this app, though, is to record multiple microphones at the same time. This could be 2 microphones on the same computer, or I'm going to actually record my system audio with a little bit of a workaround. So once I've selected that, we're going to call this system audio. And then how I'm actually, so this VoiceMeter thing here, this is VoiceMeter. What it's doing is I'm setting my system audio to this cable output. You can actually just use this for like your headphones or whatever. This is just kind of how I do it for Twitch. And it's sending audio out to this channel on VoiceMeter aux. You can kind of see with this old video of mine here. If we play,
sometimes you need to run code multiple times in the same frame. An example of this would be something with,
you see that it's making some noise here, and then it's putting it out to this microphone. So there's going to be duplicate audio here. Forgive me. This one's going to talk about Unreal Engine, and then I'm going to say something else.
In Unreal, actors have access.
So if I talk about cats, I talk about dogs, I talk about anything else, just not Unreal.
Multiple times in the same frame. An example of this would be something.
And so now that we've done that, we're going to wait for the recording to stop. And once it does, if we look at the log preview, it's talking about running code, something else. And if I talk about cats, talk about dogs, anything but Unreal. So you can see that it's actually capturing them both separately. So that way you can use the 2 audio sources separately and then know who said what, which is again, the main reason I built this app. And you can do this with multiple microphones, or again, with your system audio. If you have questions about VoiceMeter, again, it's a little complicated, to be honest. You'll see a lot of problems online. But basically, you just want to send one output, one input to an output, and then make sure that your recording hertz are the right hertz. For me, my system uses 4800. And so that is the app. The application is free to use. There's all the source code as well. So if you want to make your own version of the same thing, better, worse, whatever, it's there for you to do it. Some quick disclaimers is one, it does cost money. Technically, you're not paying me, but you're paying OpenAI. If you use the OpenAI model, it's 6 cents per 10 minutes of audio per microphone. That's kind of one of the downsides of this, is it uses all the microphones, but you get separate audio data from that. You can run it for free with Whisper, and I kind of showed you how that works. But basically, you just have to be able to run Whisper on your computer. there is some latency there, and it does use up a fair bit of your computer, but that's kind of the only way to make it free without using some other service. So added that just because I know that would be a hangout for some people. And then, we're storing an API key for a service that costs money. If you use OpenAI, I highly recommend you actually make sure you set limits. Don't trust some random code on the internet. We're sending audio to a voice server, and that could be used by OpenAI or could be intercepted by me. So again, be careful about that. I'm not doing that. You check my code to see that I'm not doing it. But, these are just actual reasonable concerns you should have with any software on the internet. So one of the main reasons I made this app is I wanted to have an AI that would listen to what I'm saying, listen to what's on the screen, and then listen to also what chat's saying, and make little comments at the bottom that would make fun of me or say some sort of cringe statement or whatever. And so it's a second streamer there to react. Another thing was OpenAI had this voice assistant they showed off that let you click a button on your computer, it could record what you're saying and then actually go to ChatGPT and get you an answer. So integrating that later with maybe screenshots or something. This is the base app for a lot of different other apps. It's not exactly useful to just have a text file unless you have something that can read it. I know how to do that. The goal is this is probably going to be used by other coders who can do the same thing. But, I want to make something that's more usable in the long term. A next idea I had as well is same thing for the stream thing, except have a chatbot in the stream that could listen to you or someone else's stuff and react and actually comment if it's a viewer in the chat. So the next thing is how did I make the app? So I'm using Electron as the framework for actually visualizing this whole thing and packaging it to make it an app on your computer. I'm using nodejs, which is JavaScript for running the code in the back end. That's basically collecting your audio and your microphones, and then sending some data to update and store the settings you have. It's basically all the background framework there. Naudiodon is the main library that I'm using for actually getting that audio stuff. It's very convenient and low latency, which is why I went with it versus something just like FFmpeg. Very convenient to use, although it did have its own problems along the way. On the front end is JavaScript, HTML. Not really using a framework for this, just because I'm not familiar with those. I have some hacky workarounds. It is not good front end code. I don't recommend you looking at this as your example on how to teach yourself. I'm a bad programmer. I'm fine with that. But it was enough to get the app going and do the things that I need to do with it. And then lastly, it's just, OpenAI and Whisper. They're just AI services that can actually get the audio and transcribe it in real time. There are downsides with Whisper's approach. There's some text that is actually just misunderstood sometimes, or there could be gaps in the audio, or it gets weird if there's long stretches of no audio. So it's not it's unusable, but for real time, it's about as good as you can get right now without paying a ton of money. So, I'm happy with it. So at runtime, basically, you start the app up. It goes through and loads all your microphones. It loads all the previous save data from when you opened the app and used it last time. It gets the text files. It checks a couple things. And then as you're adding microphones, it's just updating that save data. But when you press record, it starts recording audio in two rollover pieces. So the record audio, once it's done recording, it sends it to OpenAI, but also starts another recording. And so it will just keep doing those over and over and over again as you're actually using this app, and keep updating that log. Relatively simple, but the learning experience was really the main part of this project. There's a whole lot of things I'd never done before, a whole lot of problems I encountered. I actually had worked on this since April. I actually had a thing on my stream way back when where I can press a button and it records what I'm saying and it sends it to AI. So I've had the effective tools of this for quite some time, but making this multiple audio thing was actually a huge challenge, and as well as making an app that other people can use, because I have a lot of stuff that I can use, but the goal is maybe trying to distribute stuff so other people can do cool things on their streams, on their own projects. And so this took me 5 months, but there's a 2-month dead period, and then recording was part of it. I've had it, probably actually took closer to 2 months of actually learning how to do all the things and fixing all the problems. But I've been sitting on this for a while, so kind of glad to actually just be getting it out there. So you know how it works, you know how to use it. If you want to use it, it's free. It's everything's in the description. So what's the rest of this video? Okay, so my goal is to kind of just talk about all the different like pros and cons of the process that I used while making this, a lot of problems that I had, and just kind of ramble about that so other people can like know what I learned. So the first thing is, this is the first project where I've used AI to really help me code, and not just like, oh, fix a problem, go learn a thing. I mean, I have integrated a plugin called Chatgenie with a little bit of modification, so I'm using whatever models I want. That lets me actually like, I can get big pieces of my file and like send it to it, and it can like fix errors or like clean up the code or stuff like that. It's been very helpful for the most part. More complicated things across multiple files, if you abstract like you kind of do with an object-oriented language, it gets a little confused about that. And there's better tools out there that cost money that I just haven't used yet. But knowing how good this is something that I want to like keep using in a workflow in the future. I do a lot of things in Unreal Engine, and AI is really stupid about it right now. It's just actually completely worthless for Unreal Engine. And so like maybe in the future it could be better. If I switched up here to C++, that would be cool. But it was an awesome thing to kind of just like have that to improve the workflow, something that I'm pretty happy with. The next thing is like, again, the front end stuff. Like I had all this working in a Visual Studio like script that I run, and that's kind of how my Twitch stream has a bot, and I just like set up the bot every time I run it, and so I can debug it and I don't have to do packaging and stuff. But yeah, this front end was actually a pain in the ass. Without a framework, it's really hard to make like single page like dynamic applications. I had one job in the past where I was using I started off with just learning basic JavaScript and stuff, so it's kind of more similar to how this app works. But I used a framework called OpenUI 5, or it's something that was based off OpenUI 5. It's basically a dead framework, so like no one uses it. I have no other skills when it comes to front end, but I use some of like the hacks I know on how it works to kind of make the same sort of dynamic front page. It's good enough. It's fine. I'll probably make more tools to make that easier in the future. But a lot of research on how to like load a bunch of HTML and its scripts and have it all dynamically react. Like when you load up a microphone page, it's just injecting extra HTML with IDs. All my functions are like dynamically bound, so when you call something, it's like it figures out which item had done it, and then it runs the appropriate like function based on that. So it's pretty bad. You can look at it and see, but it's probably very hard to actually read what's going on there. I'm fine with that again. If it works, it works. That's all that I care about. Being able to actually like set up in a way that someone else can use it is interesting, and it's probably something that I need to do a bit more in the future when I make my tools, because then my friends could use it, or someone else on the internet can use it if it's interesting to them. So one issue that I actually had finished this maybe a month and a half ago, and I kind of came back to this project because I realized the first time I've refilmed this whole thing, but I filmed this whole thing and I kind of shut it off without the whisper part included. And I had a lot of disclaimers about like, oh, it costs money and whatever. And I kind of thought that would dissuade a lot of people. The reason I didn't initially include whisper was because I didn't want to have to set up whisper on people's computers. Because one, you can have different configurations that run better like GPU based versus CPU based. The one I have is simply a CPU one because it was the easiest for me to set up to prove the concept, but it just runs the command whisper on your command line. And so as long as you can do that, you can get the output file. And I think having this like, I didn't exactly implement it, but I kind of implement it versus, I'm installing this on your computer. You have to use Docker. You have to use all these other things to basically make sure it's all like contiguous and works for that person. I didn't want to set all that up. I thought that was going to be a pain in the ass. But eventually, I do think this is a good implementation, not implementation, but it's a good like way around the problem. I probably won't actually use the whisper part, mostly because it's slow. And sometimes the logs can get out of order. So if you need like real time, like a subtitle thing, the timestamps are all right, but the log is slightly out of order because sometimes Whisper will respond faster with one versus the other, depending on how much text is being said and how much you can understand it. And that's kind of like a downside that I didn't really want to deal with, because I just want to have this like simple idea of like, okay, I said something, it's text, I'm using it. Like that's to me what I actually want when I'm building stuff. So it's like, you know, if you really can't afford, you know, 6 cents every 10 minutes, you know, the workaround's there. It's there so that way someone else doesn't have that problem and can still use this, or can figure out how to go use Whisper and do your own cool thing, make a better version of this whole tool. Another thing I had a lot of problems with was Naudiodon. So Naudiodon is this like library that's a JavaScript, it's a Node.js library that I'm using that actually like gets the microphones and records the audio and stores it to a file. That it worked great for what I was doing, but one of the big issues with the way that it works is you actually can't get like the output of a speaker, which was the whole point I was using this. Like I can get the list of speakers, but I can't actually record. And there are safety concerns as to why that's the case, because you don't want to just like install spyware that just installs stuff on people's computer. You have to be deliberate and use the VoiceMeter banana, but other softwares do it. So I don't know exactly how they do it. I know OBS uses FFmpeg, but when I used FFmpeg, one, I was having troubles getting it to work well, and then two, even for the basic case of just using a microphone, when I'm using the microphone, there's delays, there's gaps, and so you could miss a second of audio, or maybe it's half second, but still, that's enough for a word to be misunderstood as you're breaking between these. So with that, like, I just didn't feel like that was a great option, and the workarounds I have there, I'm fine with. I think that, you know, a lot of streamers already use, VoiceMeter, so there's tutorials out there, and it does the job. You know, maybe in like if you're using Linux, there seems like a lot of good tools there, or some other programming language. But Naudiodon seemed to be the best thing that I could use for this app just to get it done, and I was comfortable enough with using it. And one of the last like really big issues of this project, the one that actually took me the most time, about 2 months, but I mostly it's because I was dissuaded and I didn't want to work on this, was the packager. So actually getting this application to package so I can upload it to the internet. The issue that I had was Naudiodon didn't have some like a DLL, and I couldn't figure out what this error code meant, but that's effectively what it ended up meaning, by using Electron's default packager. So they like recommend this thing to make the executable. I couldn't figure it out. I ran it, I got the error, I didn't know what was happening. So I found some other one, which I will put the name on the screen because I don't remember. And it works fine and it's great, but it's like I was too stubborn to like just go switch to some other like, you know, quick thing, because I didn't want to install more garbage on my computer, make my app more bloated. There's a ton of like extra crap in there that I'm not using that I, you know, maybe I'll use in the future, but from legacy projects. But it's like I'm already doing so much. I just get it out there. There's got to be a quick fix. But the switching packagers was easy enough, and I kind of embarrassed that I didn't do it quicker. But you know, who knew? Overall, I just kind of want to create more things. I spend a lot of time on my video game that I'm making, and I'm never going to show people what it's doing. I mean, we're like 9 months since we last showed anything that's happening there, just because there's so much that's going on. But having like a small scope project that I can actually show, ideally I don't take 5 months the next time, but I now know so much more about what I'm doing. And the next projects from here are more like just code something versus this whole like integrate with your system and learn Electron and all this stuff. So it should be significantly easier the next time. But yeah, I just want to keep making more things, post them to the internet, see if people like them. I got some ideas for like maybe paid software that's a bit more like something I'd actually maintain a bit. But for this, you know, it's like if it doesn't work, whatever, who cares? It's free. If you have problems, let me know. I mean, I'll post a comment, leave an issue on GitHub. If you have features you want, same thing. I mean, I can try to improve it, you know, if it's reasonable. Because I do want this to be like good, but I ultimately think like this is more of an example project for someone else who wants to make something similar. So they can see like, okay, I yoink this, I yoink this, I yoink this, and then I go put this in my thing so that my stream tool does whatever I want it to do. Or non-stream tool. I tend to think stream tools because that's kind of why I built this. But yeah, I hope you appreciated this, and on to the next goddamn project.